Esteemed audience, we cannot all have the same opinion about different topics, so this is the show that gives high school students a safe space to discuss different issues. This is the Great Debaters Contest, Season 9. I am your host, Esperancia Kapanga.
And I am Chris Buru. The motion being debated today is illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa.
In the proposition, we have Dodo High School.
In the opposition, we have Califonia Secondary School. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
Soma, 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 kijana. A song that you will only sing along if you understand the lines and you know the importance of that song. Well, I am Odhiambo Beryl Atieno, proposing the motion that states illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa. What is literacy? A study done by UNESCO has defined literacy as the ability to identify, understand, create, communicate, compute, and use printed and written materials associated with varying contexts. Once you are unable to do all these things, you are considered illiterate. What is poverty? Poverty is the inability of a family or a country to meet basic needs, e.g. food, clothing, and shelter. How is Africa being considered illiterate is that most of the people who are in Africa are considered illiterate, and it's making us poor. I am a very concerned citizen, and I am so heartbroken saying that Africa is actually the poorest continent in the world. Why do you think other continents are not poor? It is because they are literate. Well, a study done by UNESCO has revealed that population increase is a major contributor to poverty in Africa. And do you know the reason for this increase? It is because of ignorance, especially among women who will shun helpful measures such as Family Planning Act. The reason as to why they are shunning these measures is because either of their beliefs, or maybe because they are considered illiterate. If only we consider the fact that these huge masses are not balanced by the government. Like, for example, in Nigeria, we have 200.96 million people, making them the 7th in the world with the high population. How do you think the government is going to be able to support these huge masses? Secondly, education is closely linked to poverty by the UN because those who could not read and write have little chances of getting skilled job and build their livelihood. The numbers continue to rise in sub-Saharan Africa, while 59 million children between ages of 5 to 17 work instead of going to school. If their education was to be considered, don't you think that these people could be greater people in future and support their income? Allow me to make a comparison between South Africa and Congo. Well, South Africa has high literacy levels, and also they have good resources, like, for example, gold, which we are all aware of. While in the same Africa, we have Congo, low literacy levels with the same resources like gold. South Africa is developed because these literates that are in South Africa are considering these resources and making use of these resources in that they are developing their country. But in Congo, these resources to them, they just look like an attraction because they don't know the use of these resources. If they were literate, we could consider Africa as a better place. Thank you.
First proposal, you have 3 minutes.
We have reached where we are today due to active learning and embracing the changing times of innovations. Well, I'm Faiza Abdul Ahmed, representing California Secondary School, strictly and strongly opposing the motion that states illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa. To begin with the definition, what is illiteracy? Illiteracy is the inability to read and write. Leading, the most important or the main. Cause, to give rise to an action, phenomenon, or condition. Poverty, the state of being poor. I agree, illiteracy causes poverty, but totally disagree that it is the leading one causing poverty. There are other major problems causing poverty, not just illiteracy. For example, corruption. Africa is widely considered among the highly most corrupt places. Countries in the sub-Saharan Africa lose billions of dollars each year through corruption. According to Forbes, as said by the analysts, 10 of the countries considered the world's most corrupt places. 9 of them are in Africa. A 2002 African Union estimated that corruption has cost the continent roughly $150 billion a year. To compare, developed countries gave $22.5 billion as aid in 2008, according to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Imagine a whole continent losing $150 billion and is given $22.5 billion as aid. This is about $122.5 billion lost forever. Think about how many people's lives were ruined because of corruption and languishing in poverty. In Africa, the highest rates of corruption occur in Nigeria, Senegal, and Cameroon. Moreover, misusing or mismanagement of funds. In 2008, more than $500 billion have been sent to African countries for the purpose of economic development. However, the money has brought little change in the long term. This might be because a large portion of the money is either spent on weapons which are bought from developed countries, and this brings no gain to native inhabitants because the money is still sent back to developed nations. In addition to that, a large sum of money is used to develop expensive projects which bring little benefit in the long run. For example, Okosambo Dam in Ghana, which had cost billions of dollars constructing it for the purpose to provide electricity from aluminium bauxite. However, the ores were discovered to be of too low grade, and therefore the entire project became a waste of money. Last but not the least, environment. The environment in Africa is also challenging. From land erosion to desert to deforestation and water shortages has increased poverty. Why are we not recognizing the major monster? Thank you.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Proposing the motion, illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa. I'm Immaculate Anthony from Dodo Secondary. Allow me to correct you, my learned great debater. Illiteracy is not only the ability to read and write, but it's being able to know what, as in it's getting the right knowledge and being informed. On to my first point. Standing here, I'm such a sad person to know that I'm living in Africa, whereas Africa is one of the poorest continents in the world, and it will remain poor for as long as we remain illiterate. The level of illiteracy has made us to over-rely on weather forecasting, which is actually not being predicted correctly nowadays. We have our own weathermen giving us wrong predictions, and as a result, we end up making wrong decisions. Take, for instance, Kenya. We have agriculture being the contributing to 26% of our gross domestic production, and another 27% gross domestic production indirectly through other sectors. Unfortunately, Kenyan farmers have been crying lately due to the great losses they have incurred during this period. We, together with those farmers, believe that we are going to have enough rain in April to sustain the crops that we have put in the ground, and that we are going to have enough output. But what was the outcome? We had the wrong weather predictions, and as a result, we ended up planting seeds that until now we haven't seen their products. Secondly, allow me to quote the Bible. It says, "Ukiwa nayo utaongezewa," and it's actually true. Those who have more is added, but to those who don't have, even the little that they have is taken away from them. What am I trying to say? If you have even a little literacy level, you have the ability to use the computers, use the internet, and as a result, you're able to get more information in certain areas. We have areas like the business sectors. Through the use of computers and use of internet, we can get more information to actually improve our business sectors. We also have the agricultural sectors. Take a country like Egypt. This country is actually in it's actually like a desert, but due to the little information they had
and they were able to use these computers and internets. They were able to get information of which they used to construct dams, use irrigation to improve their agricultural sectors. Egypt is actually now getting better agricultural outputs than we Kenyans for our own ignorance. Therefore, join me in supporting today's motion, which says that illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa. Because actually, knowledge is power. Thank you.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
I am an African not because I was born in Africa, but Africa was born in me. I feel the pain of poverty. I feel the pain of poverty, but I don't agree, and I totally disagree the fact that illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa. She mentioned about employment. That sounds ridiculous to me because there is no connection between illiteracy and unemployment. In fact, according to a research done by the African Center for Economic Transformation in 2016, it states that 10 million of the graduates across Africa from 668 universities, a half of them, that is 5 million, did not get employment. So what's the connection of, those people are not only literate, but they are also educated. So how do you want to convince me that illiteracy is actually causing unemployment in our continent? Trying to correct someone, but putting yourself in a total mess is pathetic. The second speaker tried to correct the definition of illiteracy. According to the United Nations definition, illiteracy is inability to read and write. Going forward, the first step to solve a problem is acknowledge the problem. We Africans, the major and the leading cause of poverty in our continent is not illiteracy. There is a difference between reality and imaginations. Let us be honest. Because climate change is one of the greatest threats to our continent. Rivers are drying up. Take the case of Egypt. The river Nile, Egypt depends on river Nile for it is all water uses. But now the river is bringing the lowest volume of water simply because of climate change. Do you want to tell me the longest river in Africa is drying up due to illiteracy? Another case is Lake Chad. According to research done by the United Nations Environmental Programs in 2010, in a few years to come, Lake Chad will disappear due to climate change. A whole lake that can be seen from space is going to disappear due to climate change. Where's the connection of literacy then? Now, finally, energy will be hampered due to climate change. Much of Africa depends on energy for either fossil fuel or hydroelectric power. Water volumes in rivers are drying up. Lakes are drying up. We will not have energy in few years to come. Without energy, no industries, no employment, no tax, poor standards of living, poverty, death. Thank you.
The proposers have been asked, if illiteracy is a problem that leads to poverty, then what solutions can they offer us that can eradicate this from Africa? The opposers, on the other hand, have been asked, isn't it illiteracy that leads people to do actions that eventually lead to climate change, such as cutting trees and dumping plastic in the environment? Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to respond.
I am Mama Africa. I am eulogizing for our country the low levels of literacy in our continent. What do we gain by not educating our people? A member from Starehe asked us, what are we doing to eradicate the low levels of illiteracy? 1, the government has implemented or has stationed the free education systems that will help to enlighten people and know how they will reduce the levels of poverty in Africa. On to my first point was, Who do we see fighting? These are illiterate people who do not know the various ways of solving conflicts in a proper manner. We see them throwing stones. Do we ever see teachers, the doctors, pelting stones at each other? No, they go and boycott in a peaceful manner. But what do we see in Mathare, where we have mushrooming of slums? These mushrooms of slums, they are actually inhibited by these people who are not literate. Second, our continent has actually clinged onto our has actually clinged onto backward cultures. We have not educated a girl child. When a girl child could have been educated, then definitely a country would have been educated. And when a country is educated, then we have eradicated poverty. Who do we see in television saying, "Serikali saidia"? These are women who, if they would have been educated, then definitely we would have a better country to live on. Or even the continent at large would have actually been a prosperous place to live in. Thank you.
Tadupuza, you have 3 minutes to respond to your question.
The donkey herd book gives wisdom and ate it. On the stage to oppose the motion that states illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa is Abdul Basit Abdullahi Sheikh from Califonia Secondary School. Now, to the question asked, isn't illiteracy causing people to cut down trees, to throw plastic bags all over? Now, the main question here is climate. You are referring to climate change. In industries, we see that they are releasing dangerous gases to the atmosphere, which is the leading cause of global warming. So now do you want to tell me those people who are manufacturing, producing these goods we are using are illiterate, cannot read and write? So ridiculous. Now, let the eyes be wide open and let there be pin drop silence, because there is an important point to note. Insecurity, a tremendous contributor to poverty. Hostile atmosphere unsupportive of investment and labor, and the eventuality is abject poverty. Al-Shabaab is a very good example in Eastern Africa. Waging attacks in Kenya, Uganda, Somalia, Ethiopia, and killing in 2017 alone 1,457 people, according to Forbes, which the major event was 14th November of 2017 in Somalia, referred to as the Black Day, where Al-Shabaab was responsible for an explosion that killed 587 people and injured more than 1,200 people. In Western Africa, we are having Boko Haram. In Northern Africa, Daesh is waging attacks. What do you expect people to do in such a situation? Acquire education and become literate to overcome poverty? So absurd. On top of that, lack of infrastructure leads to poverty greatly. According to World Economic Forum, 1.2 billion people do not have access to electricity. About 783 million do not have access to clean water. 2.4 billion still use solid fuels to cook their food. And 1 billion live 2 kilometers from all-weather roads. Imagine you want to go to the work, but there are no roads to get you there. Or there is downpour and the roads have been blocked. What would you do then? Finally, the question remains unanswered. Why is the proposing side or the opponents recognizing the havocing giant master, the mastermind behind the scenes? Thank you.
Proposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Well, the problems with us Kenyans is that we only think of things that we understand, but we don't consider the deeper meaning. My dear brothers and sisters, illiteracy is not only about reading and writing. it is having the deeper understanding of something. If I can be able to read and write, and I cannot apply these reading and writing skills to day-to-day activities, do you think I am not illiterate, or am I literate enough to use them? Well, education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world. If we consider this education as a factor, the only song that we should find a chorus for is Serikali Saidia. We should consider this education, because only and only if we teach our learned fellows here that illiteracy is only leading to poverty in Africa. Thank you.
Opposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
You will notice how hyenas shut up when I walk into the room, says the lion. That's the relation of corruption and climate change to illiteracy. Eliminating poverty is a mirage by itself. If you want to bring efficient steps, if you want to put in tangible efforts, let's create a conducive environment. Let's prevent environment pollution. Let's there be proper planning of government resources. Let's embrace zero corruption. Listen, corruption is the emperor. Climate change is the king. Illiteracy, guess what? The maid. Thank you.
Baba Dogo. Burial, I think for me what stood out is that you're a very confident speaker, okay? And that's a good plus for your team. Good examples, yes. But as my colleague has said, especially that example of the South Africa and Congo example, you want to compare now the literacy levels, okay, between the two, so that at least now we can get with a factual argument. Immaculate, good cross-examination. I think you understood your role. When you stood to the platform, you first of all and cross-examine the other teams. Then you mentioned about, a reference to the Bible, okay? We know the Bible is a combination of many other books, okay? In fact, that statement that you say that, I don't know, to him who is much is given much, I think that's what you're referring to. It's good to say where it is, okay? Because not everybody refers to that. So that in case we want to confirm, we can get that. However, very good argument, but your coherency can come with a lot of practice as well, okay? Okay, well done. However, when you underutilize time, because that was a serious underutilization of time, you end up getting penalized. 1 minute, 15 seconds. I mean, that's quite far, okay? Because we're left with the whole, almost 2 minutes of underutilized. Slums, boycotting, and illiteracy, that did not connect, okay? Because we also didn't have a source as well.
California, Faiza Abdiweli, that was a very clear definition of terms. Illiteracy was defined briefly and clearly, and that was quite good to us. You have given what we call justice to the motion, because when we say illiteracy is the leading cause of poverty in Africa, and you are opposing, it means it is one among others. And your team actually as a whole, there is evidence of teamwork because you gave us other sources. Now I'm referring to the three of you. Other sources of poverty, like insecurity, poor infrastructure, and that is really evidence of research. That is quite good. Only that I also took issue with how did you get this information about the most corrupt nations in Africa, Cameroon, Nigeria, Senegal? Unless it just escaped my ear, I didn't get the source of that allegation. Mohsin Shafi, very good rebuttal. You have given good quotes. You are really confident, composed, and you really appealed to me. That was quite good. Abdullahi, okay, let me use the second name. You are very convincing, and there is evidence of research in your work, and that is quite good. Through the three of you, there is clear evidence of you sat down and you really worked on this motion. This is quite commendable. Thank you.
After all is said and done, it's down to the numbers. Baba Dogo High School, the judges saw it fit to award you 63%. Let's give them a round of applause. Califonia Secondary School, the judges awarded you 72.5%. Let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations to both teams for giving us a good debate and a good show.
Indeed, the take-home message for this debate is that illiteracy is the maid, but corruption is the emperor. Thank you for staying tuned in this show. We'd like to appreciate all our participating schools, the principals and the patrons, even the students that step up on stage to make this show a reality.
Remember, this is the show that gives you the best debates in the country. You'll only find them on the Great Debaters Contest. I've been your host, Chris Boru.
And I am Esperancia Kapanga. See you in the next episode.